I feel so bad. September was just such a hot mess of a month and very stressful and just a lot of chaotic things at the end that there are some books that when I looked at my reading log, I was like, I read that? I'm like, I have no memory of even reading that. Hello friends, happy Friday. So very excited that you're here. So excited I'm filming this video. I recently did a video for Patreon and channel members. I'll leave a link here to the one for channel members, sharing just how hard it's really been very recently between real life stresses and then things with my manga that just were making my life a really hot mess when it came to mental stuff. So I'm saying that because I roughly read about 36 different volumes of manga last month, and there were many things that I didn't super love or I liked it, but I decided to drop it and sold it off about I think it's 2.5 weeks ago at this point. I had wanted to sell off some older manga series that I actually gave it to a friend and then sell off other manga series since it was near A Second in Charles, and that's like way out of the way for me. So I dropped a lot of different manga off, and there are quite a few manga titles I'm not going to talk about. Like if you were to count all the manga I'm going to feature today, it's not going to equal to 36 because I just decided for the sake of my own mental health and choosing to be, I guess you'd say, more transparent with Patreon and channel members because that is more like private and I didn't want to blast that publicly, that I'm just going to keep those things there. If you're interested in checking out, you're more than welcome to, and I'm going to focus on things that I really enjoyed and that I did not drop this month. But if you're like, well, I want to know what you read and what you decided to drop, you are more than welcome to go check out my Goodreads. I'll leave a link down below because I always leave reviews, and you can know if I didn't write a review, then I didn't really enjoy it. That's like my own passive way of just marking that I read it, but not wanting to say anything about it because that's just usually a sign that I've noticed for me in my years of using Goodreads that I just want to mark it so I can get the credit at the end of the year of how, or not credit, but say how many books I read at the end of the year. With that said, let's go ahead and dive in. I read a few digital things, so if my friend Bean Queenie is watching this, I want to apologize to her. She gifted me volume 1 of Your Forma digitally. I had every intention of reading it before September, but then we lost internet due to the Hurricane Helene. I could not get on Bookwalker to go read it. Then things just got even more crazy, like right before at the beginning of October. So I have not read it yet, friend, if you're watching this, but I promise I'm going to read it. I'm very, very excited. But the first 2 things I read last month was The Fragrant Flower Blooms with Dignity. I came back to this series. I have talked about in a previous reading wrap-up that I liked it, but I didn't love it. And that was mainly because our main guy, I am blanking on his name right now, he was just not the delinquent that I thought he was, and he's really not a delinquent. This is not a delinquent manga. I feel like that is misleading to say it is. Yes, he has those vibes, but ultimately at the heart of it, it is not a delinquent manga. So coming back to it with that in mind, I really enjoyed volumes 1 and 2, which I read on K-Manga, a lot more than I did the first time. In fact, at the end of volume 2, I was really tempted to start collecting this series physically, and I was actually really bummed. I forget what trailer it was that dropped for an anime, but I felt bad because I realized in hindsight when I went to start editing, I forgot to mention in a manga news video that the trailer dropped for The Fragrant Flower Blooms with Dignity. I felt really bad because I was interested and excited because I think it dropped like a week after I had reread volumes 1 and 2, and I said, man, I completely forgot that in my excitement for whatever anime it is, and I can't remember what anime it is. That's just so sad, but I really enjoyed what I read. I am very interested in reading more on K-Manga. I don't think I'm going to get them physically, and that's mainly just because this morning I went through all of the manga that I really want to pre-order that I'm interested in getting, and y'all, I need a higher budget. I need a higher budget. I cannot get everything that I want. I was like, this is gonna have to stay digital for right now, and then if I just have some extra funds on the side, then I can go pick it up, but for right now, I'm gonna stay digital. The next thing that I read, I tried Men of the Harem on WebToons. I read chapters, I believe 1 through 16, which I felt I count as a volume. I feel like that's like a rough volume 1. It was something else. I am not a fan of harems or even reverse harems, which probably sounds sounds funny because I do read a lot of otome-based game manga where like you have the villain just reincarnated in the otome game and it's a reverse harem. That feels differently to me. This was not an otome game. This is a fantasy. It's sort of like a revenge story, but it was very interesting seeing how our female lead, how she sort of gets back at her fiance. This is also, I should say, I decided to try it because it has been licensed physically by Eyes Press or Yen Press, and it is by the same team that did the Remarried, or that does Remarried Empress. So I decided to give it a chance, and I had a really good time. I had a really good time reading it. I think I am going to continue with it physically. I just, even though I'm like, I don't know how I feel about all this, I just enjoyed the characters. All the guys were really great, and just how strong our female lead is, and how she is handling her fiance. Basically, he doesn't dump her, but dude, you got some unrealistic expectations here. Like, you can't expect to go marry somebody else and be like, please wait, let me divorce her and then I'm gonna come back to you. I'm like, what is this, like a remarried empress but in a harem setting? And it does sort of feel like that way, but she is very different than Navier. There wasn't like, okay, this feels like the remarried empress but in a different setting. It didn't feel like that, so it's probably like not the best example or like way to word that, I should say. But yeah, I think I'm gonna continue with it physically because I had a good time. I'm very curious to see where it goes, and it's still ongoing, at least on WebToons right now. I think it's on season 4 because I subscribed to the series, but right now I really love all the guys. I'm pretty sure my favorite guy, he is a certain character's brother. I'm not gonna say who it is because I think it'd be spoilers, but I really like him because he's just so funny. I do also like the red-haired dude. I think he is the knight or the guard or like the head knight. I really like him as well. I really don't know who she's gonna choose though. I don't know if she'll ever choose anybody, to be honest, but I'm here for the ride as of right now, and we'll continue it physically. I am continuing to stay updated with the Remarried Empress, with Morgana and Oz, and Love for a Walk. I am feeling some pain right now, like with Morgana and Oz. Like, this last week's chapter was absolutely brutal. I do agree with somebody that said trigger warnings should have been set at the beginning because yes, I do feel like it would have been a spoiler to have that tag, but it also, I really was like, okay, as like I know bad things are happening, I really need to prepare myself. I was not prepared enough. I was like, that was a really upsetting way for that chapter specifically to end. And then in the Remarried Empress, things are just going down so hard right now. Navier, living the life, living the golden life. I feel like she's so happy and I'm loving that for her, but it is just very hard seeing things with Rashida, the Emperor. I could care less. I'm like, dude, go ahead and sob. You just make my day better. I know that's so bad to say, but I really love his character. Like, I have no sympathy for that man. Like, you're just dumb, buddy. Just the dumb things you be doing. Love for a Walk has been like, I have been saving that. I think I mentioned it in last week's video. I know I recently mentioned it. No, my manga news video, that I've been saving that for after reading Remarried Empress and Morgana and Oz because they're just so intense. There's so much that's happening and they're just so painful. Love for a Walk has just been so healing and comforting. It's bright and happy. Though this last week's chapter, it ended on a cliffhanger and I'm like, the mood was right, the vibes, the feels, like, yes, we get that romanticness going. And then, you know, our guy just sort of shut it down. I'm like, please. I'm like, what are you doing? But I did see, I have been, like, after every time I read a new chapter, I look to see what the creator, what sneak peek she's given, and she did mention that there's going to be some spice coming, and so I mean, nothing too spicy, some steam would probably be more accurate, and I was like, okay, I'm like, so the moods or the vibe isn't just ruined for like the foreseeable future, because I was like, what is he doing? Like, this is my happy comfort story right now. He just ruined it, but it's still very, very good. I'm loving all three of them. Even if my heart's feeling broken, thankfully it's being put together with Love for a Walk. Like, very, very thankful. Though what did not put my heart together for the last digital manga that I read, that was Sheltering Eaves. It was available on NetGalley, like a review copy, a digital one, and so I requested it, got approved. Whew, this is by the same creator as Perfect World. It was really good. It's just, I feel like it's hard to rate this kind of story when it comes to like how many stars I would give. I ultimately gave it 4 stars. I do feel like it would have been 5. It's just, there were some personal trigger warnings for me. Anything that's involving child abuse or effects of child abuse is very upsetting and triggering for me personally. And again, even if it's just showing the effects, it still leaves me very unsettled. And there were very brief moments of that really was like, oh my goodness. And then where it ended was a very big cliffhanger. And I enjoyed what I read. feels weird to say that I enjoyed, but I liked what I read a lot. I like the characters. I'm invested in these young people's story. I don't think I'm going to pick this up physically, not because I disliked it, but since I'm having to be tighter on what I pick up and think about, like, would I reread this? I don't feel like this is a series I would reread. It is a series, though, that I would desperately love to see on K-Manga. I would gladly spend those tickets and those points because I want to know what happens. I want to see these kids or these young people to be able to heal and find freedom. I mean, I forget our main girl's name, but her emotions really wrap around you, and I again felt very invested in her story and seeing what is she going to do, how is she going to handle her future. But then you get to the end and it is like a huge disruption of everything that these characters have been wanting to do, what they've been thinking about doing. I wouldn't say like a wrench in the plans, but this is an upsetting, life-changing kind of event that happened. And so I definitely would love to read more. I'm hoping that if K-Manga doesn't get it, that my library would get it, because it's one that I'm like, no, I don't want to drop this, but I just know that I won't reread it because of the topic and the themes. But it's one I would definitely recommend. You can see the love, the care, the attention to detail that went into this series, and I am very interested in seeing where it goes. I would definitely recommend it, especially if you love series like Perfect World, though this feels so less dramatic, and I'm so thankful for that because that series was way too dramatic for me personally. But I would also say My Girlfriend's Child. So if you like those, I definitely think you would enjoy or at least like reading Sheltering Eaves. I hope it does really, really well. Now we can go into the physical things that I read. I apparently remembered all the digital things I read because, like, the Fragrant Flower, like, I read that at the beginning of September. That was the very first thing I read. But when it came to this, I was like, I know I liked it, but I'm like, what? When the world went down, I feel bad. That's volume 2 of The Perks of Being an S-Class Heroine. I had to flip through this to remind myself what did happen. I remember volume 1 because I reread volume 1 twice, but this one, I just forgot. And so as I was flipping through it, I was like, okay, this was a very fun volume. Please forgive my memory and it being like, well, did you really enjoy it if you didn't remember it? Please forgive my brain right now, okay? I think what I really liked about this is you're seeing our girl be OP, yes, but she had to feed the, about to say a spoiler, things had happened. She did some really cool things at the end of volume 1, and now we're seeing some of the aftermath of what happened. One of those things is she meets these skeletons, and I love the skeletons. I think they are hilarious. They're very cool. They're very funny, and rather than her just blowing off these skeletons that nobody wants to deal with them, she gives them a purpose. The purpose they have been longing for even when they were alive, and now they are seeing that purpose becoming fulfilled. And I found that, like, really fulfilling as a reader to see. And not only that, but things with her brother, like, yes. Yes, because I hate how he is treated in this manga, not by his family, but by this brat right here. This dude is such a brat, and I just hope that we don't see him like a whole bunch later on. Like, please do not make a comeback in this story because I just do not like him. And I get he's a younger guy, but he knows what he's doing. So I didn't like that character, obviously. But when it comes to her brother, seeing them grow closer together and seeing how, like, because she is this OP heroine, that she gets to see things, you know, with the little screens as a transmigrator. She knows what's to come and she's cheering him on, and she's getting a family here in this world. I think she can really be a family. Like, it's not just because she's in this novel or anything like that. No, it's a family who cares for her just because that's her. We also got to meet our male protagonist, who was very different than I expected, because I can't remember when we first meet him, if it was in this volume or the next volume, but he was so different. Because I will say, when it comes to the dungeon event in this, it was a little bit horror-ish, a little bit like some kid-geared horror, and I was like, I didn't sign up for this. Wasn't bad. Like, the action was very, very good. I was hooked. I was on the edge of my seat. Yeah, the hero here, he just was so different, and I thought, like, he looked so cute and like he maybe be shy. When those walls sort of come down between him and our girl here, no, he's not that. He's not that. And he had some really nice, fierce moments like this right here, coming up what he said, and he just looks great. and he has changed things, and the creators of the novel game are not, I'm not really sure what you would call them. I forget what their actual names are, but they're not happy. They're not happy. I did like the dungeon master. I don't think he's actually the dungeon master, but he's the one that's interacting with all the characters, and I loved him. I know he's the bad guy. I know he's causing a lot of bad things to happen, but he was just so funny. He was so funny. And the ending definitely left on a very funny cliffhanger. I'm eagerly looking forward to volume 3. I'm gonna have to read volume 2 before then though, because I do not like this feeling of, I don't remember anything that happened until I started flipping through that. Like, no, we need to be up to date and fresh when volume 3 comes out. Thankfully with this volume, I didn't have that problem. I read volume 5 of Reincarnated Witch Spells Doom. Again, this series continues to get better and better. This was a really emotional volume, and I was really surprised of how emotional it was and how much is at stake. I feel like really we're sort of thrown in, and our girl here's thrown into this situation with this other dragon where you don't have time to catch your breath. Like, not in a way where the story feels rushed. It didn't feel that way, like where it's just a whirlwind of things. No, it was more like there's a lot that's happening. There's a person's life on the line, and we have to, as a reader and our main girl here, we need to get there. We need to get there ASAP. And if she can't get there ASAP, then things could be even worse than what it already appears and seems to be. And if time wasn't just an issue, because there's a lot of politics in this volume, I mean, there's always been politics in every volume, but the politics really create even more angst and tension, because it's like this, like I said, the person's life is on the line, and now these political people are treating others like political pawns in order to gain more prestige or push their agendas further, and it's causing just a lot of tension in this volume. I love the water, the beach vibes though, and there's nothing really addressed with our girl here, Sana. There's nothing addressed with her and the prince that she is engaged to. There's nothing really, there's sort of like a romantic moment, trying to figure out how to say there, but like nothing else happens. And it's like, well, where are we going with this romance? I mean, I love it. I gave this volume 5 stars, but it's still like, I would love to know where we're going, buddy. And if you're going to like actually pursue our girl. I'll keep waiting though, gladly so. It definitely ended on a cliffhanger. Yeah, the tension was amped. The scenes, trying to see if I can find like a non-spoilery scene of the dragons being just OP and really cool. I mean, the stakes couldn't be higher than they have thus far. And I didn't think that was possible, because in the previous arc, things were very like high stakes. And I'm like, okay, but we're getting more involved with the people. So it feels like the stakes are not just for Cena, but they're for other people as well. I need to see when volume 6 comes out, because I need it. I love this series and would highly recommend it. Next up is The Ice Guy and the Cool Girl volume 6. I'm not going to say much because I don't want to go to spoilers. I love it. The creator did say in the previous volume that she was going to be focusing on the side couples. Yes, she delivered. I loved it so very much. It was great. Same with volume 5 of Mr. Villain's Day Off, Another Slice of Life Josei manga. I loved it very much. Much cute shenanigans. Makes me happy. Makes me feel better. Can't say anything else really about this, except we meet a few new characters. My favorite character, or newer character that we've met, and I love them. I hope we see them again. And there was a new female character that we met. She was super cool as well. And so both of these are just such great feel-good manga. I love them both. And I'm sorry I can't say anything about them, but I'm like, it'd be spoilers if I said anything, because they're just so short, but they're so good. This one, thankfully, I can't talk about, and that is Secrets of the Silent Witch, volume 3. I was just thinking about Monica yesterday, and I love Monica. Monica is amazing. I admire her courage, her strength, and how she's overcoming personal challenges of anxiety and fear. And I'm like, girl, you're just going out there and you're being incredible. You are being incredible. The last arc wraps up in this volume. Very satisfying. Hate how Mr. Lewis had like a chapter to himself. I'm like, oh, please no, get off the page. I'm very curious where this series is going to go, because I thought the ending of this left on a really good cliffhanger of sorts. And I love the bonus short story as well. But I want to know what is going to happen, because Monica finds herself in a really interesting position. And I feel like she unknowingly, because of what she's doing, could prove herself to this guy here, who I am not the biggest fan of, honestly. I mean, anybody, honestly, in the prince's close circle, I'm just not a fan of. I never can remember her name, but this girl right here, I believe she's Monika's friend and genuinely cares for Monica. I love her, and I'm like, please just let her and Nero always be around Monica, because I swear they're like her biggest supporters. And the villainess, she's pretty funny. She made a comeback in this volume. I was really excited to see her as well. But I love those three surrounding characters. I mean, there's a few other characters that I'm like, yeah, I like you. I like you. Like the one guy that's always yelling all the time. I like him. He's pretty funny. I think he's sweet in his own kind of way. But it continues to be very, very good. I have a first impression video of the first 2 volumes. I love it. Would continue to recommend it, and can't wait to see what happens next. Gotta bring in some humor with Mia from Tearmoon Empire. I read volume 5. This was not my favorite volume, mainly because Abel was not there. I'm not even gonna cap. I miss Abel. I love him. I was really thankful at the beginning he was at least there, but I'm like, Abel, come back, buddy, come back. I mean, we see like appearances of him in the sense like he writes letters to Mia because they're on school break right now, so they've all gone back home. And so we'll see him in the sense he wrote Mia a letter. He sent her a really, really funny gift that was just, it was priceless. So I was like, go Abel, Mia, she's just too much. She's just too much. So she is, well, it's interesting, I should say. I really love the fact that for a time travel kind of story that Mia has this diary, and even though things have changed and she can sometimes see those changes in her journal, she can still see, well, she does see those changes, yeah, because she can see that things are still not going the best for her and that she needs to do more in order to change the upcoming future. I find that very fascinating for a story element, story plot, because it's like she knows what's coming, but yet at the same time, she's working so hard to change that. And so we really see that in this new situation that's happening. And I'm like, Mia, go after this new character because he is just awful and he deserves to be taken down super hard. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next and really hope that Abel comes back because I miss him. I miss him so much. Before I read a much later volume in my stack of manga, this was, I'm pretty confident, my favorite before then. So maybe it's like my runner-up for like favorite read, and that's volume 5 of I Want to Be a Receptionist in This Magical World. I love this series, but there's times I sort of get, I wouldn't say frustrated, but I'm like, I want the romance. I want the romance between these two, and I felt very fed when it came to that. Has the relationship changed? No, it hasn't. But were feelings made through a very dangerous situation that takes place for a girl? Yes, there was, and I was here for it. I reread this volume 2 or 3 times because I just loved everything that happened. I love our merfolk that we see because we're at the beach. Nunley, her getting angry, and whatnot, and how things are changing, how our hero comes and saves the day, sort of what happens at the end. It was just all very, very good. I felt like this volume was sort of low-key determining, am I going to continue the series? Because again, I've enjoyed it. I've read almost every volume twice. I know once, and then I sort of skim read over at random times throughout that month. So I know I enjoy it, but I just felt like if this is a romance, I need to be reminded that it's a romance, or could be. I mean, obviously last volume with how big the stakes were and how it was like a life-threatening situation, that yeah, you could see there's feelings there, but it just did not hit the same way like it did in this one. Maybe because that was the peril and the action that was taking place, and then we're at the beach and I loved everything that was happening there. And so I feel like all of it just fueled or refueled my love for this series. So I'm definitely continuing it. It was a very good volume that had just some interesting, funny things that happened, but also some action that I deeply loved. And I'm just so excited to have that love refueled for this series because man, I would have been crestfallen to drop it. So definitely no dropping here. Gonna keep loving it and seeing what happens next. Speaking of wanting to see what happens next, I read volume 7 of I'm Giving the Disgraced Noble Lady Rescued a Crash Course in Naughtiness. I did talk about this in my top 5 seinen manga video. I was flipping through this volume before this video and I loved it so much. Charlotte, many things I said in that video are true for this volume specifically of I'm so proud of Charlotte making decisions for herself, saying, Alan, I want to do X thing. I'm going to do X thing. And not like in a haughty way, but in a way where she's being brave and she's stepping out in courage and good faith and hoping that the results will come and they will show. And I loved it all. Alan is just so smitten by Charlotte, and a thing that happens later on made me laugh of how he was just so proud of her, and just everybody around him was like, that's pretty creepy how you're being proud of her in this moment. But it was great, very good. I am very eager to see where this volume is gonna go because now that we have a new character on scene, I just never expected, like, didn't plan. I thought that this character's gonna act one way, that character's not acting that way, and so I'm like, it is just shenanigans and a free-for-all for everybody. Cannot wait to see what happens to Volume 8. I'm so bummed it doesn't release until next year because I want to know. It was just a fun time, as it always is, but there's that extra heartwarmingness that happens too in seeing Charlotte be brave, and I know that she will just continue to be braver. I feel bad. I love this series, but since I'm reading it weekly, the Remarried Empress Volume 8, I had to go back. I was like, what happened in this volume? I was like, what has taken place? I loved it, and as soon as I started flipping through, I was like, this is why I loved it. This is why I loved it. There's a lot that's going on. I'm very excited for Navier, though, and how she is starting to warm up. She's starting to be more expressive. Rashid, on the other hand, my heart is just breaking for her. I think it's just because it's like, man, I'm viewing all of the events from that I've read before through a completely different perspective or like lens because of what I've read now up to date on Webtoons. And it's just like, girl, if you could just run out of this situation, that'd be really, really great. But we see some old faces again. Love that for Navier, and that she's just, again, starting to warm up. The Emperor's being stupid, as always. You know, nothing new has changed. Just because he wrote a letter in this volume explaining the situation, did you really think things were going to be any different, buddy? I just don't understand your logic. And then, you know, we see him get married, and he's asking Navier for a dance. Like, dude, it is your wedding day. Why aren't you dancing with your wife? Why are you dancing with your ex-wife? You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand him. I have no desire to understand that man and how he thinks. But it was great, though, because we have Henry, Navier. There was a misunderstanding. People got the wrong idea, and I said, oh, that's a misunderstanding. I don't mind people having, because yes, yes, it was so good. It was wonderful. I loved it. I love coming back. Seeing the story with fresh eyes has been so wonderful. I'm very thankful that Eyes Press is releasing it. I was just thinking the other day that I guess when all of the physical stuff caught up to where we are in Korea, like physically, I'm gonna have to reread it again because I just love the series so much, and seeing Navier's journey and her growing and healing and being loved for who she is one of the most satisfying things. I love it so very much. This was a very fun read, and that is Pink and Habanero Volume 1. Though I'm not gonna front, this guy right here, oh my gosh, like, he was such a jerk in the beginning, and it's really interesting to me because a lot of people have said that this is like a reverse gender bender of Maid Sama. That is not a selling point for me personally, because I didn't like the girl in Maid Sama. I thought the guy was great in Maid Sama. I know it seems to be an unpopular opinion, but I really liked him. I didn't like her, and so I did not feel that way at all. Maybe I didn't read far enough in Maid Sama, but I could sort of see about the job thing, yes, but the characters, no. I can't see that for me personally. So I just had to say that because I just don't understand that comparison for me personally, and that's what I keep seeing everywhere. So anyway, I really enjoyed this. Honestly, I think it's some good reads. I would give it 4 stars, but because I laughed so much when reading this, I had to boost it to 5 stars. Did the guy, yeah, act like a jerk? Heck yeah. Every time our main girl was like, he's such a jerk, I was like, yes, yes, he is. And honestly, the thing that redeemed him for me is his little sister. We see another side. Well, we don't see another side of him. We hear about another side of him that I feel like made him more endearing. And I was like, okay, you're not, and even at the end, by the end, I'm like, okay, you're not the jerk you come across to be, but I'm like, you could be a little bit better, buddy. So I'm definitely getting Volume 2 because I just had such a great time. Like, if you need a manga that will make you laugh, I definitely feel like this one can successfully do that. Now, if you don't like characters, though, that act like a jerk, pretty mean jerk at first, then maybe not. Maybe not. I mean, I think her name's Muji. She really helps liven up this manga a whole bunch, and I love her. She's great. She's great. So I would just give, I guess, that caveat that if you don't want to see that, then you may not find this manga very funny, but I definitely did. Can't wait to see what happens next. Speaking of Morgana Oz, earlier, Volume 1 physically came out, and I loved every single moment. I loved being back at the beginning. I forgot how bad Morgana is at magic and all of the cat shenanigans that are going down in the beginning. I was like, man, this is so funny. I was like, just how sad at the end of season 2. It's getting so sad right now, but I loved it. Definitely would recommend it. I meant to look for it when I went to the bookstore recently to see if I could find it because it is just a phenomenal story, lots of heart and humor in this first volume, and cat shenanigans for sure. A little bit of delinquent vibes over here with Oz. I love him, and I'm so excited to get volume 2 to see how things unfold because I really, really love the characters. And so it was just as perfect as the first time that I read it. Would highly recommend it. It's on WebToon, so you can read all of it for free right now. It's not on FastPass. We are going to be hitting season 2 finale this upcoming Sunday, and I'm not ready because then it'll be on a little bit of a hiatus. She starts working on season 3, or like drawing, I think, and taking a break. But I'm like, no, I want it back. I want it back, and seeing how it unfolds. So very good. Would highly recommend. Oh, and this was so wonderful. The Twisted Wonderland manga anthology came out last month, and it was everything. Like, if you're a Twisted Wonderland fan, this is your manga. I mean, the original manga is very good, but I just feel like this is like a love letter via manga to Twisted Wonderland fans. There were so many wonderful moments. It was really hard to say what my favorite was. I definitely love that Idia chapter though, and I will say that there's colored pages of each dorm, and they were beautiful and stunning. I really enjoyed it. If you're new to Twisted Wonderland, I would not suggest picking this up because there's no kind of introduction to the characters. It's definitely set up that you already know who everybody is, how they act, what their friendships are, or what their friendships are like, that you already know all these things. So don't check this out before you check out the actual manga or play the game, because I really feel like you're going to be lost and confused. The art was great. There's so many different creators. I wanted to go look up and see if some of these creators have different works in English already, because the art was great. I don't think there was one story that I did not enjoy. I felt each one was just very good. Well drawn, well written, and I thought it ended on a very hopeful note considering things that happened with Riddle in the past and just how that was like, it felt like a perfect volume all the way around. I loved it all. Every single moment, so I would highly recommend. It is perfection. This is another volume. I love this series and I never remember what happens. I honestly feel like this would probably be the best way for me to like read this story is to binge it, but I love every volume because I gave this 5 stars, and that's Last Game Volume 6. I feel like some developments are happening and I'm here for it. I love it. I was flipping through this volume yesterday and I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, this is so cute. This is so sweet. I'm excited to see that Kujo, she is starting to, I wouldn't say realize things, but she's starting to have a change of heart. She's starting to feel really conflicted and she hasn't understood for the past few volumes of certain feelings why she's feeling this way, but I really feel like this volume is the turning point for what's to come. But oh my gosh, our guy here, the ending, I was like, well, like, I don't know what's gonna happen next. I don't know what's gonna happen next, especially since Yanagi was not there. And Yanagi did something this volume when he was pretty drunk, honestly, and he did something and it changed things, and I'm just like, I don't know. So I am eager for Volume 7. I was very excited to see Volume 7 and Volume 8 are both up for pre-order. I'm like, let's go, let's go. I think Volume 9 is too, because the only one I couldn't find was Volume 10. But I'm eager, I am excited, I need to know. And this is definitely a series, like, I've loved it as I've been reading it, but I eagerly look forward to, like, binge reading straight through to see all the developments and all the misunderstandings and the cute moments, because there were some very cute moments. Very much loving it. It has just been a blast to read and having a good time with it. Oh, I'm so sad about this one. So Volume 7 of the Eccentric Doctor of the Moonflower Kingdom. This is the only volume I have not loved in the series. I have deeply loved every single volume before this, but this one had some trigger warnings that were upsetting for me, and I was not a fan of it. Just Kyoyo slay every single time. And I feel like this is a volume that if I went back and reread the series, I would just skip the middle altogether. You do see, is his name Sozin? He's sort of the bad guy in this series. At least I feel like he is the bad guy. This dude right here. You finally see his backstory. And that's where the trigger warning came in, because he's a young child, and I'll just say that a grown man wants him. That's all I will say. And I was very upset by things. Nothing graphic shown, but he's one of those villains that are villains. I feel like that I may not like him. He makes me feel uncomfortable, but he is such a compelling character. I don't like some of his I don't like any of his motivations, honestly. But he has such a strong way of thinking where he feels he is not in the wrong, and he's sort of playing God in a way, like, of sorts. And I don't like that. but he makes such a great contrast when it comes to Kyoyo. And honestly, that was one thing I feel like this volume did so incredibly well, of seeing how Kyoyo and him have sort of similar, I wouldn't say backstories, but I feel like they're very similar characters. The way they act, the way they do things is very similar. And I agree with the character, because it's been pointed out before, and I agree with them that, you know, they almost seem like they could be siblings, but they're very different. And you see that difference between them of how they handle other people, and that they are not the same. They are not the same. We especially see that at the end with Kyoyo and how she reacts and how she's having this moment. And I was scared for the briefest of moments. I'm not even gonna lie, I was scared. I was like, Kyoyo, I do not like how your face looks right now. Like, Kyoyo, like, come back to me, okay? Like, come back out of that darkness and come into the light, because it was scary there for a brief moment, and I just didn't know what she was gonna do. I'm excited for the next volume. I didn't love this one because of some of the backstory things, and I miss Kyoyo and some of the happier shenanigans, but she's finding out things about the epidemic and was trying to figure out what to say without giving spoilers here. But yeah, things are about to happen, and I hope it goes down in a really good way. I will definitely still be getting the next volume because I love Kyoyo, and I cannot wait to see how things unfold, because girl, you got it. Keep doing you. This here was my favorite read of this month, and that is Otaku Vampire's Love Bite. It was so cool. So when I went to Second Charles that one day, I actually found this out in the wild, a first for me, because I hardly ever go to the bookstore. And when I have gone to the bookstore, I don't ever find things out early, and I just happened to see it smushed in between two used volumes. I don't know what they were. I just saw it and I was like, grab, take, keep going. I was so happy. This volume was everything. Hina is in my best shoujo girls group now. I loved her. She was so relatable. She's naive. She's, I wouldn't say gullible, but she's so innocent and very fun. And just, I wish I could live through her. Like, she'd be a character that asks, like, if you could be in a character's shoes for a day, who would you choose? Hina. Hina, I would choose her, because that is the coolest thing. She went to Japan to live out her life as an otaku, I would say, in real life, in Japan, like with real other fans, and being able to go to all the merch events and do all the merch things. Like, it is wonderful. This is a really fun and funny first volume. Not a lot of romance yet, but I do like our guy, and how there is that like contrast between who her favorite character is, because her favorite anime character ever looks just like him. Doesn't have the personality of them. They have two very different personalities. And so it causes some funny moments of where she'll be picturing her favorite anime character and then seeing him, and he's like, stop being a creep. Don't picture me as him, because I'm not him. So I loved it. Highly would recommend. I have read this twice now already, because I just had such a fun time. The art was wonderful. I do agree with somebody that like the first chapter really does feel like a one-shot, but it was so effortlessly, at least as a reader, going into more chapters that it just felt like a continuation. It was awesome. I really thought that was really cool. I liked how it ended. I'm curious to see where it goes. I have seen chapters because of me getting Hana to Yume magazines, and I'm here for it. I'm seated. This was easily a very strong and definitely contender for one of my favorite reads of this year, of like being in the top 6 whenever I go to do my bracket at the beginning of the new year. I loved it, and like I said, Hina, best girl. She's in the group now. I love her. It was so good. I had heard about this and I was on the fence of getting it, but then I saw that it was also at Second Charles, and I was like, let's just go ahead and get it. And that is The Boy I Love Became the Jaded Emperor. This is a josei manga, 2 volumes. Volume 2, I think, comes out next month and then it'll be completed. So I am not one for bittersweet, sad romances, but this is sort of it. There's not actually much romance, but there's definitely a lot of bittersweet. There's some sadness, and I loved it. I really enjoyed this volume, and I was just so shocked. I definitely put volume 2 on my pruder list, because I feel like even though this first volume starts out sad, that volume 2 is going to be a lot happier, and I'm here to see that hopefulness and hoping things go down in the best of ways. It's a very interesting reincarnation, not time travel, yeah, more of like a reincarnation kind of story. It's not necessarily an isekai, because it's still happening in the same place she's lived in this world, but she's been reincarnated as a new person, and it's as this noble lady here. They knew each other when they were both younger, well, when he was younger, I should say, and so now that he's this jaded emperor, she's wondering, will he recognize her? Will she recognize him? And that is sort of where their feelings, I guess, come into play, I guess you would say. I'm trying to figure out what else to say without spoiling anything, because I feel like going in blind was sort of the best thing I could do. Like, I had read the blurb, but I felt like the story was so much more meaningful for me of not knowing where this volume was going to go. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought the art was fantastic. Again, I'm getting volume 2. Not a huge fan of the bittersweetness, but it was so good that I want to keep reading and see what happens next. And the last thing that I'm going to wrap up this video with. It was not the last thing I read, but it was the last thing that I loved from last month, and I was so excited, and that is I read volumes 1 through 4 of Fiancee of the Wizard. I have done a video review, not on this channel, like I recorded the video. I have not posted it yet. I love this. It was wonderful. It was a little bit rough at the beginning because Eddie, like, he was great as a kid. He came back. I'm like, Eddie, what happened, buddy? What happened? Why you gotta act like that? Why you gotta treat her like that? Like, oh, I was not happy. And there was some things like miscommunication or lack of communication, excuse me. It's like, oh my gosh, but every volume was so well done and so well written, and the poke at tropes concerning isekai and whatnot was just so well done. I loved it. This is easily and definitely staying in my collection. I had such a great time. It was such an encouraging read when I was really stressed about different things, and just loved the characters. Eddie really grew on me, and you could definitely see like another example of incredible writing is when Eddie was having these moments though, especially in volume 1, you get a chapter purely from his perspective, and I think that was such a good idea because it really helps show the reader that Eddie does not hate our best girl here, that he really does love her and care for her. And there were other moments throughout the series where we can see those moments, and I really feel like it helped me personally not be like, Eddie, I hate your guts. Just right now we're in a rocky relationship as a reader and character here. So I really enjoyed it. Shout out to my friend Sarah for gifting me volume 1 for my birthday. I believe it was this year, and I'm so thankful, friend, that I finally read it. Really enjoyed it, and I can't wait for that video to go live and share my thoughts with you guys because it was wonderful. And that, my friends, was everything I read. Lots of wonderful reads here. Very thankful to share about them, and hopefully you saw me talk about a manga you've been curious about and like, oh, I got an opinion about if I want to get it or not. Hopefully if you do, that you enjoy it. But I would love to hear from you, friends. What are some manga or manhwa that you enjoyed? Let me know. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And thank you so much for watching. Bye!